Hey, I'm Mel.
Hey, I'm Mol.
Hey, I'm Hugh.
Welcome to the Podyssey.
With the GlioBabes.
Two girls.
Two brain tumours.
And Hugh Adams from Brain Tumour Research.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, let's find out.
In today's episode, we're joined by Hugh Adams, who is Head of Stakeholder Relations at Brain Tumour Research.
Thank you so much for joining us, agreeing to join us. Can you, for people listening and they don't know who you are or anything about Brain Tumour Research, can you please tell us exactly that? Who are you? And what does Brain Tumour Research do?
Yeah, of course. And thanks for the opportunity to talk with you guys. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, so I'm Hugh, and I've worked at Brain Tumour Research for, 14 and a half years. Before that, I used to be a cameraman. I was a film cameraman for the BBC, and then I decided that I wanted to leave the world of media and came into the world of charity. I didn't know anything about brain tumours, but someone who lived near me called Sue Farrington-Smith founded a charity called Brain Tumour Research, and she really had a story to tell. She wanted people to know more about brain tumours because our basic feeling is, and it's a truth, people can't support a charity unless they know it exists. They can't get behind a cause unless they know it exists. So really, for the last 14 and a half years, I've just been making sure as many people as I possibly can know about brain tumours and the case for more support from government for funding. So I go out and I'll go on to TV or radio or podcasts or talk in the paper or just talk to anyone really about what we do, why we do it. And I think that at 14 and a half years into this work, which has been the kind of the honour and the privilege of my working career, it really has. We're at a stage now where we've really moved the dial. There's so much more to do, but I think we've got political support. We've got fantastic fundraising support. I think we can really move the dial now for brain tumour patients. And I would say it's about time.
Yeah, 100%. So, Hugh, I feel like you've summed it up for me there. But you've mentioned there about your time in the media and working as a cameraman. But how does brain tumour research sit within the charity field? Obviously, there's loads of charities out there, but like you've said yourself, unless you've had a diagnosis, you wouldn't know that these charities exist. But why is brain tumour research important within this landscape of brain tumours and how they affect people?
I mean, that's a really good question, Mel. That is, and I think it's important that all of the charities in this space sort of have something that says, well, this is our USP, so that we can focus on what we focus on when we need to and work unilaterally, but also when it works well for the community, for us to come together and be collaborative. I think that's absolutely key. So with brain tumour research, we've got one vision, and that is to find a cure for all types of brain tumours. That won't change. And we have two ways of going about trying to make that happen. One is, there's basically two types of research. There's the research that we fund, and there is the research that we influence. And talking about the research that we fund, I'm just going to be sort of clear here. We're looking at pretty much the early stage science, the discovery science, the science that takes place on a scientist's bench, and then translating that across from the scientist's bench through to the patient's bedside. But it's got to begin with the science. That's the building blocks for moving things forward. So we fund research at dedicated research centres. They're in London and Plymouth and Scotland, and we have a vision of another couple more, and we're in touching distance of getting another couple of those. But then there's also what the government can do. And so we're a campaigning charity, and we're sort of saying, well, this is what charities are doing. Currently, 91% of brain tumour research funding comes from charities, just 9% from government. That's not neither sustainable or fair. So we need to challenge that. And that is also what we do. We sort of say, now, come on, let's have some parity of funding with other site-specific cancer research funding, because we've seen progress in some areas. If you look at the prognosis of someone diagnosed with leukemia a generation ago and what it is now, it's completely different. It's been turned on its head because of the nature of the research. The research has got more money, there's got more progress, there's got more money. That sort of snowball effect. Brain tumours have missed out on that. So one of the things that I campaign on most fervently is for government to do more. And I do actually think, both of you, because of the work that you guys do, the work that we do, raising awareness means that government is now minded to do more. They just need to be guided as to how to do it.
Such a good phrase, minded and guided. I really like that. That's good. I'm going to start quoting you on that for sure.
Okay.
So you mentioned there about campaigning and like having the backing from politicians. So Mel and I both have brain tumours, young women who've been diagnosed, who are, you know, relatively doing well, getting by with obstacles here and there. But this is something that obviously I imagine we're going to be campaigning around for as long as we're lucky enough to be well enough to do so with something like this. And we know recently, even when this episode's been released, it's still going to be recent that we've had the second reading of the Rare Cancers Bill, which was successful in its second reading. And there's loads of campaigning, loads of open rooms. We know it's Brain Tumour Awareness Month, so there's loads happening. I've got a big event at the Senedd next week in Welsh Parliament, and all these politicians are going to be there. But something we keep seeing coming up and people get really frustrated with is getting that sort of support. So if someone writes to their MP and they don't get any response, or they stop getting responses after a certain amount of time, or they're campaigning, and I've been seeing this all over social media, especially since the Rare Cancers Bill. What, from your perspective on the other side of that, what do you think are some of those biggest obstacles when it gets to getting that actual support from MPs and change makers, especially when there's so many charities and causes wanting their backing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting point, Mol. It really is. I send out a video and written update every week to our campaigning database. Usually there's some call to action within it. Quite often it's just an update of what we've been doing. But sometimes it might be a template email to send to MPs. And we're reaching sort of 1,500 brain tumour campaigners a week with this update. And I hope you both receive it. I guess you probably do. So we ask people to, we provide templates to say, look, you know, email your MP and ask them to go to the APPG. Email your MP and ask them to support Scott Arthur. You know, I was in the House on Friday when that bill was went through its first reading and passed the second reading, and there were so many MPs there, and so many of them would have been there because their constituents asked them to go there and share their stories. Now, having been around MPs a lot over the last 5 or 6 years in particular, I can't tell you how much work they have to do, how heavy their workload is. The number of emails that they get is absolutely terrifying. And as someone who's working in that space, I have huge respect for MPs who I think work harder than just about any other group of people that I've come across, and they really want to represent all of their constituents. So I think there is a danger sometimes that people who aren't used to writing to MPs will send an email, and then sort of if they don't hear something back, will say, "Well, I sent them an email, but they didn't reply," and that happens, and it is frustrating. But then you don't stop; you send another one. And then you get other people in the same constituency to send an email, and you give something that's a very specific ask. You know, if you think about it, what do you want someone to do? You know, if you say, "Will you do this? Can you come to this? Would you send a letter to this person? Would you attend this meeting?" You know, that's a very specific thing. I think you've got to kind of say, be very clear in your messaging. I am your constituent. This is my email address. This is my address. I feel about this because of this, and I want you to do this. And then keep sending it, because the people at say, for example, on the APPG, the All Party Parliamentary Group, which we support by providing the secretariat. In the time that I've been working on it, nearly every member of that group that's become a new member has become a member because of a constituent getting in touch with them and telling them their story. And that may not have been once. They may have done it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. But they're saying this is really important, and I am going to keep doing this until you do something about it. Because also almost by implication, if you don't do it, then you're not doing what you're elected to do, which is to do the wishes of your constituents. So I think the thing is don't be frustrated. Don't be downhearted if you don't get a reply straight away. Be tenacious. Have another go. You know, you can go to a surgery. The GPs will always have surgeries, quite often on a Friday. where you can go and see them and talk about these things and get the messaging, get the story that we all know that they won't know about because they won't live it day in, day out like we do. So, get the stories about the facts, the funding, what the asks are, who the charities are, what you want them to do, and just give them a case that they can't really ignore. So, as I say, be tenacious, be persistent, be passionate, be all of those things, and you will get there.
I think we need that on a t-shirt.
No, we do actually. That's really, really helpful. And as you said, people can be frustrated, and I think it's very difficult because obviously we hear about write to your MP, and anytime I see anything from any of the brain tumour charities, foundations, especially the big ones like Brain Tumour Research, it's like write to your MP, and you keep doing it, but sometimes it's difficult to understand the process behind that. So I think everything you've just said is really, really helpful. And we had the amazing opportunity to visit Parliament a few weeks ago and speak to some MPs that had worked with Dame Tessa Jowell as her time as an MP, and then in the House of Lords as well. And we got the opportunity to ask them, how do you pick? How do we show you that this charity is something you should support? Because you've got every single charity asking you to support them. So we're lucky that we got that insight, but we know that not everyone gets to go to Parliament to ask those questions or gets to have a conversation with their MP. So thank you. That's going to be really, really helpful to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is this is a momentum thing. If everybody's doing it, if everyone is suddenly asking their MP to ask a question of the Secretary of State for Health, for example, then they sort of feel that actually the whole of the country is coming down on them about brain tumours. So when there was the health minister about 3 ministers ago, in the last Conservative government, was someone called Will Quince. And we worked with him quite a bit, and I found him a really decent man to work with. He didn't stand in the last general election, but he spoke in response to a question from Dame Siobhan McDonough, who's the chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group. And he said, in my time as the health minister with responsibility for the major conditions, and that would be all forms of cancer and dementia and all of these things, he said, I've had more come across my desk about brain tumours than any other condition. And that was because just so many people were getting in touch with their MPs to then say, could you ask the minister about this? Could you ask about the money that was promised back in 2018? Could you ask about how many people are on trials? Could you ask about, ring fencing money for paediatrics? All of these things, day in, day out, are coming across. And ministers and politicians, they like to solve a problem. If they feel that there's a problem that's not being solved, they'll say, well, what do we need to do here? Right, we need to get in touch with this funding body, or we need to talk to these people, or we need to write a letter to this person, or we need to talk to the Secretary of State. All of those sorts of things happen if there's it's a feeling that there's this bottom up, if you like, pressure on them, and then they can bring that pressure back down onto the people who actually can move the money or change the system. So yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's there's that. I mean, and the other thing I'd probably say, Mol, is and this is a trickier one, is the personal relationships. If you can get to actually see someone. I mean, I'm a big fan of actually, as you say, going to Parliament and seeing people and meeting them, and then they'll hopefully they'll remember you and they'll say, oh yeah, I remember that person. They came in and they were like this, or they did that, or they spilt some water or something. Whatever they did, they did something, and that made them stand out. And they were talking about brain tumours, and that's really important. And that's probably the biggest challenge in the last year or so has been the change in personnel in the particularly the Department of Health and Social Care. We've had 4 health ministers with responsibility for cancer in the last sort of 18 months, and you build up a sort of a relationship with them, and then they're gone, and that's tricky. That's tricky, but and that's why it's so important. Actually, if when there's like the debate, the Scott Arthur debate that you were talking about, that it's recorded in Hansard. So there'll be a written record of everything that takes place within the House. And that's really important. Because sometimes people say, oh, there weren't many people in the House, were there? Not many MPs there. And sometimes that is true. However, what happens is recorded. And if it's recorded, it can't be unrecorded, if you like. So whatever was said will stay there. And you can always pull people up about it and say, well, it was, in the House, at this debate, you said this. What are you going to do about it? 6 months on, a year on, what are you going to do about it? Or your predecessor said this. Or the Conservative government said this. Now you're in power, Labour Party. What are you going to do about this? Do you agree? Or are you going to turn around and actually backtrack and not do things for brain tumour patients? And it's very unlikely they'd say that. They would say, oh, no, we want to do exactly what they want to do, and we want to do more of it. Then I think that's where the charities have to come up and say, okay, well, this is what it looks like. This is how we're going to do it. This is what we want you to do. This is the pathway that we think will get us better to where we all want to get to.
When we went to Parliament a few weeks ago, that's kind of like what we done to when Dame Tessa died. The government pledged £40 million into brain tumour research, and we've now realised that not even half of that money has been spent that's been pledged. So we were going down and we were speaking to the politicians about that, and we kind of were just bringing it back to the forefront of their mind. Yet we've had loads of people in power and there's been changes since Dame Tessa died. But like you've said there, Hugh, it shouldn't change things that have already been put in place, and it's just reminding them of that.
Yeah, I mean, it was the APPG that found out about this money not being spent, because when the money was made available in two tranches of 2 lots of 20 million, and the second lot came in when Dame Tessa died. We sort of thought, well, that's it. There we are. That's £40 million going into brain tumour research. And what we didn't realise was actually that's £40 million being allocated. That's not £40 million being deployed. So it was when we realised that, and we got that when the funding body in question, which is the NIHR, came to meeting at the APPG, and we asked them about the spending, and I said, well, it's about 11.3 million, and it's like, what do you mean? And they said, well, we allocate where we can, but we haven't been able to allocate all of it, and that's caused a lot of uproar and anger and a lot of frustration. And I think it's something that we will get sorted. I mean, you'll probably know that the NIHR has formed a brain tumour consortium now to look at actually getting the rest of that money spent. They're consistently saying that we would spend more money than that. That's not the ceiling. But I think what we have to be as a sector is more forensic around these funding announcements and making sure that they actually end up with the money in the hands of the scientists and the clinicians, and not rattling around, under the bed of the NIHR.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much for explaining that as well, Hugh. But moving on. So you've mentioned about your work in the media, and how has your work in the media influenced your approach to raising awareness about brain tumours, and what do you think the media plays in that role of shaping public understanding of the condition?
Well, I think that probably when I came over to the charity, it's a fairly unusual move to go from the media into the charity sector. I probably brought in a little less fear of the media and a little more, let's engage with people, and how you might put something together to make it palatable for a news organisation or something like that, because that was the sort of world that I came from. And there were two things really. I mean, it does go back to the fact that people can't know about you and support you unless they know you exist, and the media is obviously a quick way of getting more people, more eyes on your brand, if you like. And so I was very keen that we had a proactive strategy, sharing stories, creating a narrative which says this is happening, this is what's going wrong, this is what you can do about it, this is what your viewers can do about it, or this is the story of someone, this is what they're doing, this is how you can support them. So giving people a package, that sort of 2.5 minute news package, and we did that a lot. Do that in the newspapers, on empowering people to go on their own local radio stations, and that sort of goes right up to. I mean, last week I was on BBC Breakfast with Sarah Beanie, talking about our work, because celebrities are important in this area as well. For me, it has to be celebrities who've been impacted by brain tumours, and we do have people with high profile who'll share their experience. So I think the media is important. You've got to treat it as something that you can use and is your friend, rather than be suspicious of. So you know, if you take the time and the effort to put something together that they would like, then no one's going to try and stitch you up or make you look foolish. You've just got to stand there and make your point. Uh, and I think that's something that we do quite well. You know, we will say, there we are. That's that person's story. This is what's got. They're having to go, for example, you know, they're having to go to Germany to fundraise to go to Germany for their own treatment. That can't be right. And I say, well, how often do you hear about this? Well, we hear about this far too often. And the way that we're going to stop this happening is if blah 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 these things, and then you get your sort of thoughts and key messages and brand out onto national television or regional television. And when I say brand, you know, it's not like we're a corporate advertising, but in some ways, actually, it is. That's exactly what we're doing. We are saying, you know, this is really important. This is our key message. Please support Brain Tumour Research or whatever charity is doing it. So, yeah, I mean, it's called earned media. And earned media is the most powerful type. You know, you've got your owned media, which is your social media and things like that. But the media that you earn, it's free, but you've got it, and it's competitive. But it's something that we do. Well, I believe as a charity, we do extremely well.
That's fantastic. I feel like I'm getting a behind the scenes, and I think that's really helpful because sometimes these divides can feel quite big. And then, you know, so people like this, Mel has done a lot more than I have. So Mel's done a lot more than I have, like sharing a story on the BBC Lifeline appeal and going down that route. I'm very much like, if a journalist contacts me, I go, no, thanks. I'm okay. Or like, I'll do it, you know, like go through Brain Tumour Research or the different charities or whatever and make sure that those things are safeguarded because different people feel different ways. So it's really helpful, both what you've said with the politicians and the media, to kind of like connect some of those dots for the minds of people like us that don't work in it, that don't understand it, but feel on the other side of it and feel involved, but are kind of like, what's going on and where. You've given a really good insight into that. So thank you, because I feel like I've learned so much. So that's probably going to help a lot of people also learn a lot of things. I do have an additional question for you that I'd like to pop in whilst we're on this topic. So I like to mention a lot on this podcast. I mention a lot anyway that I live in Wales. I'm very passionate about that because not only did it mean that I didn't know that a lot of charities exist, or I wasn't kind of like sent to maybe areas that someone like Mel living in a part of England did get sent to. So we see that the conversation works differently. And of course, we know that health is a devolved matter and that the connections are different in Wales. So Brain Tumour Research, looking at the devolved nation, so outside of England, how do you function? How does that work? How are people in devolved nations benefiting and are being supported by Brain Tumour Research?
Okay, so now this is going to go out after this has happened, but while on the time that we're recording this, which is a Monday, tomorrow, Tuesday, I'm going to be at the Senedd, and Thursday I'm going to be in Holyrood. So I think the first thing to say is obviously, you know, brain tumours, as we know, is no respecter of anything, completely indiscriminate. So it doesn't make no difference whether you live in central London or rural North Wales. You know, it's an indiscriminate disease. So we've got to reflect that in terms of who we talk to. And the fact that health is devolved means that we do need to and want to engage with the devolved nations and of course with the science and the universities as well, for the reason I explained earlier about the nature of the work that we fund. So in Scotland, we have a dedicated research centre that works in between Glasgow and Edinburgh, and that sees across that translational pipeline from a scientist to patient. We are the provider of the Secretariat for the Cross-Party Group on Brain Tumours at Holyrood. They don't have a similar thing yet in Wales, but we have a number of key supporters there. And so tomorrow, I think what we need to understand and empower MSs to do, so they're the members of the Senedd, is to actually look at how they can work with us, rather than us going there and sort of saying, this is what we do, this is what we do. I'm going to go there tomorrow and say, right, what are you going to do about this then? Yeah? because you've got it as a devolved issue. You've wanted that. You want to say how clever you are in Wales and in Scotland and in Northern Ireland. Just how are we gonna approach this? What are we going to do differently? What are they doing in Westminster that isn't up to scratch that you can improve on here? Now, there's some of that is going to be that will be slightly limited because of size and patient cohort size and all of that sort of stuff. But there is good work being done in Cardiff into brain tumours. That's always going to need more money. Because if you've got double the money going in, you can have double the amount of people potentially, can't you, doing that good work? There's great stuff being done at Queen's University in Belfast. We've got a fantastic advocate over there as a member of the Legislative Assembly. So that's their equivalent of MPs, called Cara Hunter. I don't know if you're aware of Cara. If you're not aware, look her up. And if you want me to connect you guys, I'll do it, because she has a brain tumour diagnosis. She is a member of the Legislative Assembly, and she is a completely remarkable individual. I absolutely recommend you get her on your show. And similarly in Scotland, let's do things differently. You've got the opportunity to get outside of that kind of the slightly potentially old-fashioned bureaucratic way that Westminster works, and do things differently, because you're a different government. So what are you going to do? So I'll look forward to those discussions tomorrow and Thursday in Wales and Scotland.
Thank you for that. So I think, speaking of Westminster and the Prime Minister and everything else that comes with that, if you had 5 minutes to chat with the current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, to talk about brain tumour research, what would you say?
Well, I think with politicians, quite often, a lot of what that motivates them. I mean, I absolutely believe that they're going for the right reasons. But there's a bit about legacy. If you come back in 10 years' time when you're no longer Prime Minister, what would you like your legacy to have done? What would you have liked to have happened on your watch? Now, if you could have done something that had dramatically impacted on a cancer, and we all know the statistics around this cancer, if you could have done something that people would look back and say, do you know what? It was through the time when Keir Starmer was the Prime Minister, when he put that in place about, dedicated research centres or institutes or prioritising brain tumour research. That's when we turned the corner. That's when the disease, it was seen completely differently. There was a sense that actually people would get onto clinical trials, that the options were improved. That was directly because of what you did. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Wouldn't that be something to say? Because, we know that the brain tumours, it's not just about the disease burden, as you might expect it to be in terms of sort of clinical costs, but it's socio-economic too. People that, I don't need to tell you guys this stuff, but, the driving licenses being taken away, the lack of financial independence, the loss of productivity, the impact on just the ability to really give back to society is really important. And that's not taken into account sometimes when they talk about funding. It's not all about incidence. Just because more people get breast cancer doesn't mean that it should get more research funding. You've got to look at the bigger picture. So I'd say to Keir Starmer, look at the bigger picture, see what you'd like to do. Because if it benefits brain tumour patients, it's going to benefit other neurodegenerative diseases too. If you can cross the blood-brain barrier, you might do something that's going to help with dementia. It's going to improve the economy, because if you just fund research into care, you'll always fund care. If you put money into cure, you'll reach a point where you're not having to fund so much care. So actually, it makes economic sense, as well as being just the right thing to do, and what a legacy that would be. So it would be along those lines, I think, Mel.
Get this guy in front of Keir Starmer. I'm convinced. I mean, you didn't have to convince me, but that's fantastic. So thank you so much. So for someone like me, obviously I'm really passionate about it. I do as much as I can. We'll go on to talk about it, but last year I did the whole I love my Wear a Hat Day. I've got a very special hat that I got for the occasion to do with wearing having a brain tumour. Fighting a brain tumour is still this sexy, and I love to bring it out, and it makes a statement. It starts conversations. So I try and really do that to mould in my women's health times brain tumour campaigning. And I love doing it. And even on days where like I feel like I'm just not able to function as well, I feel like the one thing I can still do is campaigning around brain tumours. And for me, if things continue to go well, and I'm now at a stage where I'm like, oh well, maybe I'm going to be well enough to get a job, get into career, I would love to kind of like do something like you do, work in this sort of stuff. And I hear a lot of people say that actually. So do you have any advice to give to listeners, myself, anyone who is passionate in this area and would love to work for a charity, let's say like Brain Tumour Research?
If you're going to apply for a job at Brain Tumour Research, tell us why you want to come to Brain Tumour Research is the most important thing I'd say, first of all, because you do get a lot of stuff that comes through that doesn't actually really address the fact that why you would want to come and work here specifically. But I know I can tell that isn't the case for you. I mean, really, keep your eyes open on chat on on our site or the Brain Tumour Charity or Brains Trust, where because good people are hard to find, and you can teach the kind of the systems. You can teach people how to use the database. You can teach people how to go through a certain process. But what you can't teach them is to have the passion for the cause.
Yeah.
And if you've got that, as far as I'm concerned, that's worth more than all the other stuff that we can teach you. So you start with that, and then you'll be fine. If you start with the other things, the processes and the databases and all that sort of stuff, and you haven't got the passion, you're not going to survive it.
That's right. You're going to have, there you go. Next time there are jobs coming out, there's going to be an influx of people.
We'll be sending our applications in. As we've said, this episode will be aired on March 28th, which is Wear a Hat Day for Brain Tumour Research. We also have Light Up UK within Brain Tumour Awareness Month as well. But as well as these initiatives that happen in March, is there anything else that people can do to support brain tumour research and the charity and everything else that you guys do outside of Brain Tumour Awareness Month?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, first for Wear a Hat Day, which is my favourite of our fundraising days, and I think it's just a wonderful thing that we've got. I mean, obviously, this will be, I don't know, what, my 14th, 15th Wear a Hat Day, and it's been just fantastic. We've worked with some fantastic people, some of the milliners and the haute couture. And what I love about Wear a Hat Day is it really, it goes from the catwalk to the playground. You've got with all sorts of really, really well-known, high-profile milliners involved, and that means that we work with the racing industry and the hat magazine and all sorts of people. But also, you've got people making their own hats and wearing them in the playground or at work or at home, and so it's a great all-inclusive day and a great way to cap Brain Tumour Awareness Month, as is the Shine a Light campaign. Because as I was saying before, if you're talking to people, people want to do stuff, and so if you say, Bright Tumour people, how about getting in touch with the council to see if you can light up the town hall or the local library or something, people will do that. And so every year these things grow, and then if you go onto our pages and just look at fundraising, there are different fundraising events every month. So whether it's 10,000 step type things or run here or cycle there or swim there, all of those sorts of things. So it's basically there'll be something for you to drop into and be a part of. But if you want to do your own thing, you can do that too, and you'll get supported. Because as soon as you sign up, there'll be someone in our top community team who will be in touch and start saying, "Well, these are the social tags, and do you want a T-shirt? And maybe have this, and we can support you with that. And do you want the PR to do your story and get it onto local radio? All of those sorts of things." So just keep an eye out on what's going, and before we know it, we'll be doing the Christmas appeal.
Amazing. I know, time goes so quick, doesn't it?
Can you give what can people expect? Are there any spoilers?
Well, I mean, for Christmas,
yeah.
Or
Yeah.
well, I mean, no, I don't know. I mean, there will be something. I don't know. I don't. As a charity, you see, when I started out with Sue, there was pretty much the two of us, a couple of other people, 2-3 of us, and now there's a lot more than that. And so I don't really do so much to do the fundraising. I still always take part in Wear a Hat Day, of course, but like I say, most of my stuff is the politicking now, and if I can, the odd bit of television. The website, just go to the website, and it's obviously braintumourresearch.org. Look at the fundraising drop down and see what we've got going on. And one of the things that I think we have is a really great brand in terms of the colours. It strikes quite a cut. There's a London Marathon. The London Marathon's coming up soon as well, isn't it? So that's always got people running that. So yeah, plenty of stuff to do.
Hugh, thank you so much for your time today and allowing us to chat to you and discuss about the charity and what you guys do there and the impact that it can have if we get involved ourselves as young people to raise that awareness and the importance of advocacy and how important it is that charities like this exist. So yeah, thank you so much for your time today, Hugh. We'll be sure to put all the links in the show notes of where people can find information about the charity.
No, thanks both of you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I've very much enjoyed today's conversation. We've had a great insight into some of the backgrounds behind talking to politicians and media and who Brain Tumour Research are and where they sit in the charity space. If you would like to listen to other guest episodes, they are now all over on Spotify and YouTube. We talk about lots of different topics. Every episode is very varied with some very special guests that we're very lucky, like Hugh himself, to have on. We also have series 1 of our podcast on Spotify, where it's Mel and I rambling on about all things brain tumours, our lives, being young women in our 20s after this awful diagnosis, just trying to do some good and talk it out. So please go and listen to that. You can also find us on social media. We are on TikTok, the.GlioBabes, and Instagram, you guessed it, the GlioBabes, and all of Brain Tumour Research's social media pages will also be linked across our social medias as well. So please go and check them out, follow along and support the amazing work that they're doing.